Team mobbing. When I come around, got the whole thing wobbing. Wobbing, wobbing. When I come around, got the whole thing wobbing.
I'll let you guys in on this idea that I've had, okay? And it's something that I've been working on for quite a while. And I think that it could benefit a lot of people. I think that it could benefit you guys watching, and I think that it could probably benefit the entire world, okay? And I'm talking about SpongeBob SquarePants, okay? In fact, I'm talking about the very last episode of SpongeBob SquarePants, the final episode, the series finale of that show, okay? Because we all know that it's got to end eventually. The show's been going on for 20 years now, okay? And I think that it's got to end somewhere because, like, these guys are going to get tired of voicing these characters eventually. So I've come up with a solution to how the entire show could end and still be SpongeBob-ish, right? You know what I'm saying? You guys would close your eyes while I'm talking about this, okay? And try to visualize as I'm talking of what it could be like, okay? And I'm going to start right now. This would start off like normal, right? You know, it would have the island, it would have the French guy talking, and it would zoom all the way down to Bikini Bottom, where we would see SpongeBob. And he's in a boat, and he's driving it. And next to him is Mrs. Puff. And this is a special day for SpongeBob, okay? Because he just passed his driving exam. And Mrs. Puff is, like, different. And it doesn't have to be a huge explanation. All SpongeBob would have to say is, like, I don't know, Mrs. Puff. Something just felt right about today. And excuse my horrible SpongeBob impression, that was terrible. But that's all he would have to say is, I don't know, something about today just seemed different. And this is also where we would see the departure of Mrs. Puff's character. Sort of. Bear with me. Because let's face it, in the entire show, Mrs. Puff hasn't really had much of a purpose other than being annoyed by SpongeBob and teaching the class that he keeps taking and failing because he can't get his license. So, Mrs. Puff, at the same time, after she gives SpongeBob his license, after she passes him, gives him his license, sends him on his way, Mrs. Puff would be like, you know, I don't have much else to do in Bikini Bottom. I feel like I've served my purpose. I feel like I can move on with my life now. Before she exits the show, before she makes her final departure, sort of, she would put one last good noodle star on SpongeBob's good noodle chart on the board. She would turn the light out and leave, and that would be it. Moving on now to Squidward. Okay, like, Squidward has been the most pessimistic, most down on his dumps character in the entire show. Like, he's always depressed, he hates his life, he hates working as a cashier at the Krusty Krab. He can't succeed at anything, right? He's just like, he just sucks at life, okay? This episode would change that. Because on this day, right, Squidward finally sold most of his art that he's been working on for all these years. He's made so much money now that he has decided, I'm going to leave Bikini Bottom. So that's what he does. So here in the process of Squidward packing up all of his stuff, moving all of his stuff out of his house to the moving truck, to the moving van, whatever, to where he's getting ready to leave. You know, SpongeBob and Patrick, like, they're obviously going to see what happens, and they're going to run outside, and they're going to, you know, cause mayhem, or some SpongeBob-ish thing is going to happen at this point. Like, they're going to break something. Squidward's house is going to fall down. He's probably going to get stung by a jellyfish or ran over by something. I don't know. You know how it is in these episodes. With all that aside, like, Squidward is going to tell SpongeBob how much he actually does care about him. Because it has shown in some episodes that Squidward really does care about SpongeBob. And he does kind of care about Patrick. Even though he does hate them, at the same time he does care about them. So as Squidward is driving away from Bikini Bottom, as he's driving away from everything that has kept him down for this long, you see Squidward pull out the wooden clarinet that SpongeBob made him on the Christmas episode, and he looks at it, and that's it. I don't know, so Sandy's still kind of a work in progress, okay? But I would make Mr. Krabs retire. Face it, like, this dude has been running the Krusty Krab for 20 years, pretty much. You know, like, he's got a lot of money. As stingy as that motherfucker is, like, he's got a lot of money saved up. So Mr. Krabs would retire, okay? Leaving the question of what's going to happen to the Krusty Krab? Who is going to run the restaurant now? I had almost thought about Mr. Krabs letting SpongeBob run the restaurant, giving SpongeBob the restaurant, but that wouldn't work because SpongeBob wouldn't be able to handle it. He's an idiot. He would probably set it on fire or something. I don't know. So I thought to myself, you know, who besides SpongeBob could run this restaurant? Because Squidward's gone. You know, he left. Mr. Krabs is leaving. Who else could run this Who else could run this place? Plankton. Hear me out, I know that Plankton is always trying to steal the Krusty Krab secret formula. I know that Plankton and Mr. Krabs are enemies. But let's look at that here for a moment, okay? Because Plankton wants nothing more than to be known. He wants to be respected. He wants to be as successful as Mr. Krabs is. Mr. Krabs, kind of has some realization of, you know what, I'm retiring. I don't need this restaurant anymore. I need to put my differences aside. I feel like Plankton would be able to run this business as good as I did and carry on my legacy. Because we all know that at one point Mr. Krabs and Plankton were partners. They did work together to create the Krabby Patty, but there were differences, and Mr. Krabs and Plankton went their separate ways. Mr. Krabs perfected the Krabby Patty secret formula, becoming successful and leading Plankton to not become successful. And Plankton would no longer need to steal the Krusty Krab secret formula because he would be so proud of the fact that Mr. Krabs decided to leave this restaurant to him, and Plankton would actually do a really good job at running this restaurant. Okay, he actually would. After Mr. Krabs, gives Plankton the keys and makes his amends with Plankton, tells SpongeBob goodbye, as SpongeBob's probably back there sobbing in the corner or something, doing his SpongeBob cry that he does. Something SpongeBob-ish would happen there too. But Mr. Krabs, before he leaves, he would get in his car with Mrs. Puff. Because we all know that in several episodes, it has been noted that Mr. Krabs has a thing for Mrs. Puff, and they would retire together. That was a problem, okay? Mr. Krabs left Plankton with the restaurant. He left. Mrs. Puff left. Squidward left. So that leaves Plankton and SpongeBob at the Krusty Krab. Who's going to fill Squidward's spot? And I thought hard about this, okay? This was a very hard decision I had to think of in my head for the episode that's probably never going to happen. SpongeBob would be promoted to head cashier. Okay? Who's going to take SpongeBob's spot as fry cook? Patrick. We now have Plankton running the Krusty Krab. We have SpongeBob as head cashier wearing 2 hats, and we have Patrick in the kitchen as the new fry cook. But the episode doesn't just end there, okay? Let's fast forward maybe a few months to a year later, okay? And you have that French guy that says, 1 year later. We're back at the Krusty Krab. Okay, and it's booming. It is litty as a titty up inside this joint. Busier than it's ever been, right? Which goes to show that Plankton knows how to run this business, and it's more popular than it has ever been. Okay, we see every character that has ever made an impact on this show inside this restaurant eating, as well as just other random people. SpongeBob's busy at the register taking orders. Plankton's in Mr. Krabs' office, doing Plankton Mr. Krabs restaurant manager things. Patrick's in the kitchen, he has a hamburger bun on his head, or he's got the spatula stuck to his forehead. I don't know. Just things like that in the show would be happening at this point. But the restaurant would be incredibly successful. But all of a sudden, though, Plankton just stops what he's doing. He smells something in the air that's not right. And he says it, he tells us, something's not right. I smell something, and it's familiar. Plankton comes to the realization of what it is, right? And he runs out to the front of the restaurant, just in time to see the busload of anchovies pulling up from the very first episode. You guys remember that? You remember when the very first episode aired and that busload of anchovies just pulled up and swarmed the restaurant? That's what's going to happen again. This time, everybody's going to be prepared because SpongeBob has been through this before. He's going to look around. He's going to look at Patrick. He's going to nod. Patrick's going to nod back. And you're going to see Patrick take off to the kitchen with that aerodynamic spatula that SpongeBob had in the first episode that saved the day. But this is how the episode is going to end, okay? Patrick is going to be flying back to the kitchen with that spatula. SpongeBob's going to be right behind him. It's going to pause right there of Patrick and SpongeBob. And that's how the episode's going to end. But the song that played from the very first episode, that Tiny Tim song, I don't know the name of it. You guys know what I'm talking about if you watched the first episode. That song is going to start playing. And that's how the episode's going to end. SpongeBob and Patrick paused in midair, heading back to the kitchen. That song's playing, right? And the credits are going to roll, and it's going to have nothing but a montage of all the characters. And Steven Hillenburg, the guy that created the show, it's going to be dedicated to him. I think that's a good way for the show to end. I think the last few minutes of the show should end how the very first episode ended 20 years ago. I'm sorry if I was confusing trying to explain all this, but it was just kind of I was saying it as it was going through my head. So it probably kind of came off weird, and I kind of probably rambled on, and it was confusing. But if you guys did, follow me through all of that. If you liked what you saw, be sure to let me know down in the comments below, and I will see you next time.
Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine, ha-ha! Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time. Having got a lot, I don't need a lot, coffee's only a dime. Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight,